Hi guys, I'm Ahana and welcome back to my channel. Now in today's video, I'm going to be telling you how you can hack the YC interview. If you've looked up this video because you're preparing for a YC interview, I totally get how you feel. In fact, this time last year, I myself was preparing for my own YC interview. And in this video, I wanted to share my top 10 tips, and these are things that I think particularly helped me on my own. So without further ado, let's dive straight in. My first tip is to familiarize yourself with the interview format. I'll go through that with you now. The interviews are 10 minutes long, and you'll probably have between 3 to 4 interviewers. Because the interviews are only 10 minutes, there probably won't be any pleasantries at the beginning, and they'll jump straight into questions. The first question normally being, so what are you working on? You're expected to give quick fire answers, and they will keep firing questions at you. So you want to make sure that you're being really concise, and you need to remember to not be alarmed if they cut you off. It's nothing personal, it's just due to the pace and the style. My second tip is to be concise and clear. Coming back to the interviews only being 10 minutes, you only have maybe 10 to 20 seconds to answer each question. And you want to make sure that you're answering the question that the interviewer is asking. Of course, most of the interview is for them to get to know you and your company and really understand what you've been building. But part of it is also judging, can you articulate complex ideas in simple and digestible ways? This is an extremely important skill when it comes to being a startup founder. You're going to have to pitch your idea to investors, to customers, to friends, to family. You need to make sure that you have those skills to articulate yourself in a clear and concise manner. My third tip is to stay calm and don't get defensive. Just given the nature of these interviews, it's probably going to feel like you're being grilled by your interviewers in those 10 minutes. So it's important that you don't get flustered and that you answer your questions openly and honestly. When founders get defensive, it can start to send red flags to the investor, as every company and team is going to have some weaknesses. And that's totally normal. But it's important that they are addressed and there are good strategies for working around them, rather than a founder getting defensive about something, as that actually signals a lack of confidence and perhaps that you don't really have the answer to the question that they're asking. My fourth tip is to ask yourself the hard questions while preparing. There are hundreds of question banks out there on the internet. While there is no one-size-fits-all YC interview, the two kind of key ways that it can go is that they either ask very broad questions going over all the different areas of your business, or they focus in on one very specific aspect of your business, and it tends to be something that they may have some concerns about. The best way that you can prepare for these situations is by asking yourself the hard questions beforehand, so that you're not thrown off in the interview itself. To give you an example, around the time of our YC interview, we'd just gone through a co-founder divorce, and while everything is fine now, at the time it was a little bit of a sore subject. And our very first question in the YC interview, when 3 of us showed up and there were meant to be 4, was, where's the 4th guy? Which, without practicing that answer, it's very easy to get flustered by something like that. Even though nothing was wrong per se, it was a little bit of a sore subject, and just preparing how to answer that question helped in the interview itself so that we didn't get thrown off when that was the first thing that they said to us. Linking back to the third point, if you've already asked yourselves the worst questions that there are, then it's unlikely anything that they will ask you will throw you off. You want to construct a consistent narrative that's highlighting the best points of your team and your company, and you'll only be able to do that with time and effort and going through as many questions as you can. My fifth tip is to make it obvious how this is going to become a billion-dollar business. YC are the type of investors that are looking for something big. But as long as you can articulate how large the market is and how you're going to capture it step by step, go from where you are today to capturing this massive market, that's what they want to see. The sixth tip is know who's going to say what. So of course, if you're a solo founder, this does not apply to you. But if you're in a team, generally speaking, the CEO will take the vast majority of the questions, and if there are technical specific questions or any other specific questions in a certain area, the other team members tend to chip in. The way we did this is when we were going through the question bank, after we spec'd out each answer for every question, we said who would be taking it, and we practiced. And generally, to make it easier for ourselves, they fell under certain themes. So let's say they're about tech, then my co-founder would take it. If they're about user acquisition, marketing, growth, then I would take it. Another practical tip in the interview itself is if you're doing a remote interview, if you're in a different room to your co-founder, which was the case for us when we were interviewing, we had our own secret signal of communicating who would answer the question, especially if it fell in an ambiguous category that either one of us could take. What we would do is when the interviewer was asking the question, the person who intended to respond would unmute themselves while the interviewer was speaking to signal to the other one that I got this question, don't interrupt me. And this is super, super, super important that you do not interrupt your co-founder, or once they've given an answer that you say, and to add to that, Whilst this may fly in a regular interview or even in a regular investor meeting, the style of the YC interview just requires you to be very switched on and for it to move very quickly. By adding on to what your co-founder has said, whether you mean to do it or not, it does come across as undermining their answer. So that's something that you should never do, even if you are tempted to add on to what your co-founder has said when answering a question. The 7th tip is to know your numbers. This is the same for any meeting with any investor. You need to know your market size. You need to be able to do that market sizing calculation in front of them. You need to know how much you're charging. You need to know how much revenue you've made, how many users you have. All the key numbers and data points that can help you analyze your business are numbers that you should know. My 8th tip is to practice with YC alumni. In our case, we did somewhere between 6 to 10 mock interviews. We just went on LinkedIn, we looked up anyone who said they were in YC. We sent a ton of DMs just saying that we had an interview and that we wanted to do a mock with them if they had the time in the coming week. I think you'd be surprised at just how many people, especially YC alumni, say yes to this kind of thing. Everyone has been in that position where they have needed the help and they've had to do the mock interviews. So generally speaking, people are pretty willing to give back. My 9th tip is, and of course this sounds obvious, but build an awesome company. And specifically, get a lot of things done quickly. Talk to a lot of users and write a lot of code. If I'm honest, I think one of the key reasons YC accepted our team was because we made so much progress in such a short period of time. And this sort of track record speaks well for a founder, that you're just able to get things done. And this can differentiate some of the smartest people who, while may excel in other fields, to be an entrepreneur, to be a great startup founder, you need to be on the ground making things happen and creating opportunities. Do the hard work. Make sure your company is in the best form, whether that's securing a paid pilot right before your interview or getting this many LOIs. Whatever the North Star metrics are for your business, make sure you have them, as ultimately, this is the main thing that matters. And I have no doubt if you got to the interview stage, you are awesome. Make sure your company is too. And my 10th and final point is to be yourself. Now, I know I've just spent the last however many minutes telling you about all the strategies and practice tips that you can use, but ultimately, there's no one playbook for success, especially not in the startup world. There are so many different personality types and leadership styles that can work, that it's important that you stay true to yourself. The YC interviewers are meeting hundreds of founders every day. Show what makes you unique, bring your personality. Remember, over the next couple of weeks, you're going to be spending a lot of time with these partners should things go well and should it work out with YC. So there's no point putting on a facade or behaving in a way that you wouldn't be comfortable doing otherwise. All right, those are my top 10 tips. Now, again, I know it can be super stressful if you're in the process of preparing for your interview. Whether it works out with YC or it doesn't, all the preparation and all the learnings will never go to waste. All right, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content just like this, please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.